Hi, I'm Brenda Bailey from Pipeline Patterns, and our tutorial for today is raw edge applique. There's a lot of ways to do it, but our favorite way is to use some kind of a fusible web, and there's a lot on the market, but this one is our favorite, and it's the Heat and Bond Light. If you're only going to make one or two copies of your pattern, then you can just copy it, lay your Heat and Bond right, or your whatever you're using right on your pattern and copy it. But if you're going to make quite a few, it's nice to get some template plastic, and it comes in sheets like this, and then you can just mark your pattern on this, and then when you copy around it, it stays the same. If you use a piece of cardboard or something, it'll eventually change the size of your pattern because you go around it so many times. But this template plastic is great. It's not very expensive, and we use it quite often. So I've taken this and I've made a little flower, and then I've marked it with a mechanical pencil. I love mechanical pencils because they give you a sharp line, and I just marked it right on the smooth side of my Heat and Bond Light. So now what I'm going to do is I'll show you a different pattern, and I've marked this one. This is a little bit bigger flower, and so what you can do with this, sometimes when you use the Heat and Bond, it makes your block kind of stiff. So if there's a big area in the middle of your pattern, sometimes I like to cut that out and leave at least 1/4 of an inch all the way around inside the line, and it will still stick and work just as well as if you had the whole thing ironed onto your fabric. This particular applique technique works really well for shapes that are a little bit intricate, and then you can you don't have to worry about how they're going to turn out. They're going to turn out perfect. So I would iron this one on the back of my fabric like this, and then I can use this for something else, maybe the middle of the flower or whatever. But if you have a bigger piece, you can cut that out, and then your block isn't so stiff. But this one's not got a lot of inside area, so we're just going to go iron this on our fabric. I have this cute piece of pink fabric I'm going to make my flower out of, and I'm going to iron this onto the back of it. I made sure that it's bigger than this, because if it's not, then this is sticky on this side and it will stick to your ironing board. I use a hot, dry iron and just press it on like that. I also have the middle of the flower that I'm going to put on this light pink, so I will put that, I'll iron that on as well while I'm doing it. The next step is to cut out on the line all the way around your flower or whatever you're doing. You can do some really fun things with this technique of applique, because like I said, it will work on little tiny pieces as well as big pieces, and you can layer them, and that's when I like to especially take out the center part like I did on this one, and then it doesn't get too thick. Okay, we're back at the ironing board now, and I'm going to pull off the paper from the back of this. Of course, I can't do it on camera. And this leaves your sticky on there, and then I'm going to press this on the background piece. Now this background piece I've cut at 8.5, and so my finished block will be 7.5, because I always cut the background piece a little bit bigger, because sometimes when you applique, it kind of skews your piece a little bit, or maybe makes it a little smaller, and so that gives you a little extra room. So when I get finished with this, I will trim this down to the right size. So I press that on, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to stitch all around it, and then I'm going to press the center on in a minute. Okay, now we're at our machine, and we're going to zigzag around this, and I've got a piece of paper behind my fabric. You can buy stabilizer that's used for this, but this white paper works well, and don't use paper that has the writing on it, because the ink will get on your project. I've picked a stitch, a zigzag stitch that's a little bit close together, but not like a satin stitch, but it's close enough together to keep the edges from fraying. I picked a color here that I hope you can see. because it's not quite the same. And I will just go around the whole flower like this. I'm going to show you what I've been doing on these inside points. I get to almost the point and then I just quit sewing and then I go to the next side. I don't have to sew clear to the point because the center of the flower will cover that up. Okay, I have my center of the flower and I took the paper off the back. I'm going to just lay that on top of the flower, center it how I want, and then just press it on. This technique works really well for layering when you have different layers. Like this is 2 layers of applique. Okay, now we're going to start sewing around the center. You can pick any spot you want and go kind of slow because it's kind of hard to do a circle. But make sure that the outside of your zigzag is on the outside of the circle. And you can use any width of zigzag that you want. I've chosen a mid-width stitch because this is kind of a small flower, so I didn't want anything too big. I'm going to move this thread out of the way. And then when I get back to where I started, I'm going to just overlap my stitching just a little and maybe do a back stitch. And there we are. Right here, I've made a demonstration of zigzagging on a piece of fabric with paper behind and then keeping the same zigzag going and without the paper behind, and you can see a difference. This kind of pulls the fabric, and you can see down here at the bottom there's kind of even a little pleat, and the zigzag isn't as wide and as nice. So it really does make a nicer finished product if you use a paper or a stabilizer behind it. But you don't want to leave it there, so now we're going to rip the paper off the back of our flower. And it comes off really easily because of all the stitches that have gone in around your flower. Then I'll just rip out these middle parts like that. And there's a couple more little pieces I'll need to get, but basically that's finished. Then there's your flower. Now what I need to do is trim this to the right size, a 1/2 inch bigger than I want my finished square. So I'll do that and then we're done. This flower actually came from one of our patterns, and it is in our book, Piece of Pie a la Mode, and it's made with a layer cake, and it gives you 3 different options of things you can do. This has cherries on it because the fabric we used had cherries on it, and it's appliqued on with the same method. And then this quilt here has the flowers. And then we have a little one right here that has little cards, and there's patterns for each of those in our book. It's a great way to applique. I know there's a lot of ways, but it works really well for us.